The locals always said the hollow was older than the county, older than the maps, older even than the first logging camps that carved into the mountains with their axes and whiskey-fueled boldness. They called it Burnt Hollow, though no one remembered a fire, and no one could say who first put the name on it. Some swore they had heard the ground breathe there. Others claimed that if you stood in the clearing at night, the trees would whisper your birth name, slowly, deliberately, like something ancient learning the taste of a soul. My grandmother used to tell us never to step foot there past sundown. The hollow don't like to be disturbed at night, she warned, shaking her head as if remembering something she'd rather bury. And it always takes back what belongs to it. Back then, those words sounded like superstition, just another mountain tale meant to scare children away from wandering too far. But the hollow wasn't just a place. It felt like a living thing. And I didn't understand that until I stepped into it myself. My name is Danielle Mayfield, though everyone calls me Dani. I never expected to return to the remote Appalachian County where I grew up, but life has a way of circling back on itself. It was early fall when I arrived, just as the first red leaves speckled the hillsides and the scent of wet earth lingered in the mornings. I had come back for one reason, to pack up my grandmother's cabin after she passed away. She left almost nothing behind, just memories, old quilts, and drawers of handwritten notes about local legends she'd collected for years. That cabin had been her world, and for reasons I didn't yet understand, she never left the foothills after my grandfather disappeared in Burnt Hollow 50 years earlier. I had grown up hearing bits and pieces of the story. My grandfather, Thomas, was a strong, quiet man who hunted and trapped for a living. He ventured deeper into the woods than most dared. One evening, he didn't come home. Search parties combed the entire ridgeline. Dogs were brought in. The sheriff himself led the effort. What they found were tracks, prints in the mud, that didn't belong to any animal known to the region. Long, narrow, human-like, yet impossibly strange. They followed them right up to the edge of Burnt Hollow. And then the tracks vanished into nothing. My grandfather was never seen again. My grandmother refused to move away, insisting, if he ever comes back, he'll look for me right here. She died waiting. I wasn't planning to stay long, just enough to box things up and put the cabin on the market. But fate had a way of nudging me toward the unknown. And it began with the discovery of a journal I had never seen before. It was tucked inside an old trunk beneath quilts she had sewn decades ago. The leather cover was cracked and soft, the edges worn thin. My grandmother's handwriting sprawled across the pages, uneven and hurried, as if written during moments of fear or urgency. The first entry that caught my eye said, "They found Thomas's voice in the woods again. Same as every autumn. Same as every year. It ain't him, but it sounds so much like him." I felt a shiver crawl across my shoulders. Another page read, "The hollow keeps trying to pull someone new inside. It chooses. It watches. And lately, it's been watching Dani." That stopped me cold. Me? I hadn't set foot in the county for nearly 10 years. How could she think the hollow was watching me? My rational mind dismissed it as paranoia, grief-induced rambling. But another part of me, a buried part shaped by childhood fear, felt the weight of her words like a stone in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat awake listening to the wind brushing through the trees, thinking about my grandmother's warnings and the entries scrawled with shaking hands. Shortly after midnight, I heard it. A man's voice, faint, distant, calling my name. "Dani." I froze where I sat. The sound drifted through the forest behind the cabin, rising and falling with the breeze. It wasn't a whisper or an echo. It was clear, purposeful, familiar. My breath stilled. It sounded like my grandfather, which was impossible. The voice came again. "Dani, come on home. It's all right, just follow." For a moment, I couldn't move. My mind scrambled between fear and reason. He'd been gone 50 years. That voice shouldn't exist anymore. Yet I felt drawn to it. Against my better judgment, I grabbed a flashlight, stepped outside, and moved toward the treeline. The forest was pitch black, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow light whole. "Hello?" I called softly. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just the rhythmic chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves. I took a few more steps, only realizing afterward that they led me directly toward a narrow trail. The same trail my grandmother had always warned me against following after dark. The Hollow's Trail. Instinct screamed at me to stop, but something tugged on my mind, subtle and intrusive, like fingers brushing behind my thoughts. A whisper, faint, unintelligible, seemed to come from inside me. I turned back to the cabin, trying to shake off the dread. But the moment I stepped onto the porch, I saw something on the doorframe. A mark. A strange, elongated handprint pressed into the wood, as if burned into it. And for the first time, I wondered if my grandmother's warnings weren't stories, but records. The next morning, I drove into town to speak with someone who might know more, Sheriff Alden Crestwood, a friend of my grandmother's, and one of the last living men who had searched for my grandfather. The sheriff's office was small and cluttered, more like a storage shed than a center of law enforcement. Alden himself was nearly 80, broad-shouldered despite age, with eyes sharp enough to see through stone. When I told him about the voice in the woods, his expression didn't change. He didn't laugh or question my sanity. He simply leaned back in his chair and sighed. "I was afraid of this," he muttered. "Afraid of what?" I asked. "That the Hollow would start calling for another Mayfield." I stared at him. "This is ridiculous. The woods can't call for someone." Alden didn't argue. That terrified me more than if he had. "Your grandfather wasn't the first," he said quietly. "People go missing every couple of decades. Always near Burn Hollow. The ones who don't vanish, well, some come back changed. Not quite themselves. Talking in voices that ain't theirs. Moving like their bones ain't set right inside their skin." His eyes hardened, haunted by memory. "You stay away from that place, Dani. Whatever's inside the Hollow ain't meant to be understood." I left shaken, carrying more questions than answers. Back at the cabin, I found something else. Another journal entry dated only 2 weeks before my grandmother died. It's growing stronger. The voices come every night now. Sounds like Thomas, but off, like someone trying on his memories. I fear it's hungry. I fear it's waiting for Dani. A chill swept over me. Why me? As the sun set, the woods became unnervingly still. The usual chorus of crickets faded. Even the wind seemed to avoid the trees. It felt like the Hollow was holding its breath. Then, once again, Dani. But this time, it came from behind the cabin. Close. I stepped outside slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The air was thick, heavy, and cold even though it was early fall. Movement flickered in the shadows. At first, I thought it was a deer. Then I saw its silhouette, tall, thin, limbs too long. The shape watched me from between 2 pines. When it stepped forward, I saw its face. It was almost human. Almost. Its skin was stretched too tightly. The eyes were wrong, dark, reflective, hungry. And its mouth moved in strange motions, rehearsing words before releasing them in a near-perfect imitation of my grandfather's voice. "Dani, come home." My stomach twisted. It wasn't him. It was something else. The creature cocked its head unnaturally, like a puppet tugged by invisible strings. It took another step. I ran. I don't remember reaching the cabin door, or locking it, or turning off the lights. I sat curled on the floor, listening as something brushed along the siding. Slow, deliberate, almost curious. Scrape, scrape, tap, then silence. The next morning, the sheriff returned my call for help. I told him everything. He didn't question a single detail. Instead, he brought a map, slapping it down on the kitchen table. "This ridge here is the boundary," he pointed. "Anything past it, that's the Hollow. Always shifting. Always awake. Alive." I whispered. He didn't answer directly. "Whatever you heard, whatever you saw, it mimics. It learns. It takes shapes it thinks you want to follow." "Like my grandfather," I said bitterly. Alden nodded. "It remembers everyone who stepped inside." I felt a sharp stab of dread. "So how do we stop it?" "You don't," he said quietly. "You stay out of its reach." But it was already too late. That night, I woke to scratching beneath the floorboards. The cabin was old, drafty, full of creaks, but this sound was deliberate. Pacing. Exploring. The boards flexed and groaned as though something massive crawled just below the surface. Then came a whisper, so soft it might have been my imagination. "Dani, it's cold, help me." My grandmother's voice. I covered my ears, trembling. By dawn, I knew I couldn't stay another night. I packed my bags and decided to leave immediately. But when I opened the front door, something caught my eye, footprints in the dirt. But not normal footprints. Some were bare human prints. Others shifted halfway through the step, elongating, widening, as if morphing mid-stride. All led into the hollow. And, at the edge of the trail, nailed to a tree, was my grandmother's locket. She had worn it every day of her life. The message was clear. It wanted me to follow. Fury overcame fear. I grabbed a rifle from a cabin wall. I wasn't a hunter, but I knew how to aim. If something wanted to lure me into that cursed place, I wasn't going to walk in helpless. The forest swallowed me the moment I stepped beneath the canopy. The air grew heavy, thick with moisture. Every footstep landed in soil too soft, as if freshly disturbed. The deeper I walked, the quieter everything became. Birds vanished. Wind hushed. Even the leaves hung motionless. Then I reached the clearing, the place where my grandfather disappeared. In the center sat an old, rotted stump, and on it a photograph. A photograph of me as a child sitting on my grandfather's shoulders. A picture I had never seen before. My mouth went dry. "Where did you get this?" I whispered, knowing no human was listening. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, wet, deliberate. I turned, raising the rifle. There it stood, the mimic. Its shape twisted, part human, part not, constantly shifting as if trying to choose a form that would comfort me. "Dani," it rasped. Its voice faltered, then became two overlapping voices, then three. My grandfather. My grandmother. The sheriff. Me. Then it stretched its mouth into a grotesque smile, skin tearing at the corners as it whispered, "Come home." I fired. The shot echoed, but the creature barely flinched. The bullet passed through it as though its body didn't fully exist in this world. It moved closer. Bones crackled. Limbs rearranged. Its form shimmered like heat rising off asphalt. I stumbled back, tripping over the stump. My flashlight tumbled away. The hollow grew darker. So dark the creature's outline flickered like a shadow without a source. Suddenly, a voice thundered through the clearing. "Dani, run." Sheriff Alden burst through the trees, shotgun raised. He fired once, then again. The creature recoiled this time, shrieking in a sound that wasn't earthly. "Move," he yelled. I scrambled to my feet. Alden grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the trail. Behind us, the creature's screech rose to a distorted wail, like dozens of human voices layered on top of each other. As we fled, the forest shifted around us. Trees warped, paths twisted, and the ground itself seemed to heave like a living chest breathing beneath us. The hollow didn't want to let us go. Branches clawed at our clothes, roots curled around our ankles. Alden fired blindly behind us, shouting prayers under his breath. Finally, we saw daylight break through the trees. We stumbled out of the hollow, gasping for breath, collapsing onto solid ground. The moment we crossed the boundary, the forest behind us fell silent. Utterly silent. No wind. No birds. Nothing. Alden sat trembling, his face pale. "You listen to me," he said hoarsely. "You leave this place. Tonight. Burn the journals. Sell the cabin. Don't look back." I nodded, too shaken to speak. We returned to the cabin, and the sheriff stayed until sunset. When he finally left, he made me promise again that I'd be gone by morning. But that night, my last night there, I found something. Under the floorboard where the scratching had come from. A single, fresh footprint. Human. The same size as mine. And beside it, carved into the wood with something sharp. "Come home." I fled before dawn. I sold the cabin. I burned the journals. But sometimes, late at night, when the world quiets and the wind pauses, I swear I still hear it. Soft. Patient. Calling my name. And every time it does, I remember the sheriff's final warning. The hollow don't like to be disturbed. But once it notices you, it never forgets.